And joining me to continue today's conversation is Assemblyman Reggie Jones-Sawyer, who represents the 59th District and is currently serving as chair of the Assembly's Public Safety Committee. Thank you for joining us, sir.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
Assemblyman, for the first time in state history, both the Assembly and Senate Public Safety Committees are chaired by African Americans. Both you and Senator Stephen Bradford, who we've had on the show before, have focused on introducing legislation to reform the criminal justice system, emphasizing rehabilitation and education over incarceration. How do you plan to ensure that the system is not only more fair, but transparent, especially for people of color?
So the bill that I've introduced, where I'm requiring law enforcement to be both mature, age 25, and also have the mental capacity to deal with deciding whether or not somebody should have a felony or a misdemeanor, is the first start in that. But most important, we start to change the way we hire law enforcement, and we bring in people who are more mature and better educated, because let's face it, given an 18, 19-year-old a gun and a license to kill, we would want somebody a little more mature. And as any female in America will tell you, most men probably don't mature until they're 25. Some probably a little later. But most important, we want to make sure that law enforcement put the best person on the street, so that when people see someone and they know that the level that they had to go through to become a law enforcement officer, I think they will have more, not only credibility, but also more pride in where they are. And we, as citizens, will start to have a better opinion of them because we know the rigorous kind of process they went through.
And we've heard stories around the country about people calling the police and falsely claiming that people of color, usually black or Latinx, are breaking the law when they're actually doing everyday activities like bird watching or entering an apartment complex where they reside. You championed AB 1175, which turns these false police reports into hate crimes. Can you break this bill down for us?
So this one was kind of personal. When I first heard about it, I know many times that I, as an African-American male, I've been looked at, watched in supermarkets, and I've seen people whisper about why I'm there. And I just went about my business, never thought about it. And then I started hearing about some stories, really horrible stories of people getting arrested or even killed because someone has made a claim because they didn't think a Latino or an African-American belonged in their neighborhood or in a park. And so I always knew I was going to support a bill like that, but then it became crystal clear that I needed to author it when my own staff member told me that he was in a supermarket. A woman didn't want to take her mask off, made a big ruckus. He filmed it, and as he was leaving the store, she said, "Give me your camera or I'll call the police," and said, "Did you try to assault me?" You know what she did? She did. And luckily he's like in his 20s, young African-American. Luckily, he was very articulate. He was able to remain calm. And thank goodness for the store owners, because they came out and said he didn't do anything that that woman claimed he was doing. If they had not been there, if witnesses in the store didn't stay and hang around to tell the local police what had happened, and thank God these law enforcement officers listened to those individuals, my staffer may be in jail right now, because she made some really horrendous claims about him trying to molest her. So it became clear to me that I needed to do something, not only just for him, but for everyone that is singled out, and tell law enforcement, or even calling 911. I mean, using the 911 system is not for false calls. People could die because you're clogging up the 911 system with false claims. And so what my bill does, it makes it a crime for you to be able to do that now. It wasn't before.
What happened to your assistant is absolutely heartbreaking. And what is such a travesty is that you hear these stories again and again in different circumstances. And if there was not either someone who was videotaping it, usually on their phone, or if there were not other witnesses there at that time to document what actually happened, these incidents could have easily gone unchecked. Very, very sad. And on another note, we are, of course, celebrating Black History Month right now. And you introduced a resolution to recognize the first week of February as Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action. How are you hoping this will influence our Black youth going forward?
This is African American History Month, and I wish for everyone to look at the history of African Americans. I think it's enlightening for every other ethnic group. The Black Lives Matter movement, it really talks about empowering African Americans and protecting African Americans. And because of the struggle back and forth, that gets misplaced in the discussion. Yes, they would have peaceful rallies and protests, but that's what Martin Luther King did. And we need to be able to tell young people the right way to protest. Because I think that's what happened on January 6th. They didn't learn from civil rights leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Malcolm X and others that there's a peaceful way and Martin Luther King, there's a peaceful way you can protest without destroying property and causing mayhem.
Assemblyman, your uncle Jefferson Thomas was one of the Little Rock Nine in 1957. These 9 brave African-American students faced violent mobs in their mission to integrate an all-white high school. How are you honoring your uncle this year as we celebrate Black History Month?
My uncle was one of the Little Rock Nine, when 9 kids integrated Central High School in 1957. He was beaten, he was kicked, everything was done to him. So when law enforcement put a cross target on my face, basically telling people to come after me, and God knows what they could have done, I knew that because of my history, I'm here for a reason. And because of my ancestry, my grandparents have gone on, and I tell people all the time, if I don't stand up for all people, especially African American and Latinos, that if I ever get to heaven, my grandmother will be at the pearly gates going, you didn't do enough. And so every day, I try to do the most I can so that when I do get there, my grandmother and grandfather will say, you did the best you could while you were here.
Well, it sounds like you are well on your way to making your grandparents and your uncle very proud. And those of us who are still here appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you for spending some time with us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been great being here with you today.